Alright, so you've already done some work to build your pieces, and it's probably a good idea to go save your work. So File, Save As, or Control-Shift-S, and you're going to want to name your file with the name of your game or your ID number in V02. This is version 1. So we're going to start adding code in here to make your game work. Now, initially we want just basic infrastructure so that it plays. So if we push F9 and we get this this actions window, we probably should rename layer 1 and call it Vars. Now we're going to add a couple of other layers in here. Let's make another one here called player movement. Now really Vars should be the top layer, and what I'm also going to do with my Vars layer is I'm going to have this have some version info. So version 0.01 is basic start screen, etc. Okay, so to make this work, that's just our version information, and so this one is now going to have our Vars. Now we're going to have a few variables here, but not everything. So it's important to have a track of what we're doing for each version. So each version will have some goals and objectives, and our variables for this one are going to include some basics. Like the one we always use, of course, is stage width and stage height. So I'm just going to paste them in here because I've got them somewhere else. We've already done this. So these help us reduce our writing and how many characters we have to write every time we use that. We're also going to start our game with basic score and level information. So actually we're going to start with level says 0, 1. We're actually starting this at level 0. What's going to happen when you engage the first level? It's going to add the level, increase this amount by 1. Now we also need a variable for playing. Now variable for playing, all this is going to do is determine whether or not certain actions should happen. So the playing boolean, as you may recall, a boolean is a true or false, a binary choice thingamajig, and var playing is boolean is false. Just says, sometimes we'll say, okay, if playing is true, then we can move the player. If playing is true, we can fire. If playing is true, then we can make new enemies and stuff like that. So that's pretty much all we need for the Vars layer. And now we're going to go to the startup layer. Actually, I should call this player move startup. So what startup's going to do is we're going to start off by making a symbol for the splash stuff. So making a symbol is referring, of course, to splash and go button. Now these, of course, as you may recall, are objects in my library. Double check that you name these appropriately. The linkage says what this says, because the splash here is different than splash here. This one is the symbol. These two, sorry, this is the instance. This one and this one are the symbol. So whatever says here in these two should be what it says over here. If it does not match, if like me you misspell splash to put the L after the S, after the A, and I've done that repeatedly, it should say splash, not splash. And so double check your spelling and then test it once in a while. Control Enter, and look, we already have some issues here. So let's go find those issues. So compile time constant, go button. Now it appears that my go button in this version doesn't even exist. So it looks like I totally forgot to make that piece. So let's see how we make a button. Let's just talk that out. Let's make a button. So if I have the splash screen open, that'd be a good tool to measure the size of things with. So let's just drop that in there. Or I'll make a small button just here. So here's this button. Doesn't matter where I put it because it's going to be a symbol later on. And an F8 or right click and choose convert to symbol, or choose modify, convert to symbol. Lots of ways to get in there. We're going to call this go, and this has got to be capital because it's the symbol name, the linkage name. Go button. Export for actions. Make sure you make this a button. Now if you mess that up, it doesn't matter, we can fix it later, but it's easier if you make it a button from the start, and that's why this icon right here looks like a button. Now if you mess that up for some reason, just right click and choose properties and change the type to make sure it says button. That's all you got to do. Simple. Alright, open up the button, and for now let's just have all the same. So I can right here and choose insert keyframe or insert frame. So if they're all the same, that's fine. I can add a layer, and I can write something here like play or click here or something. Now the danger is that because I've been using that same color, it's wanting to, it's not going to stand out or have contrast with the background. So I'm going to change the color to black. I'm also going to make it a little bit bigger, so let's go with 24 on the size. You will need to experiment to get it looking the way you want it to. So if I choose this object and I use my align panel, align to stage, this way and this way, now I've got a button that says click. You can make it more fancy if you want. We'll talk about how to do buttons more better in class, and remove it from the stage. Now, there we go. So now we can check, did it work? Let's see if I can errors. No errors. No errors. Nothing happens, but no errors. No errors is good. So F9. So I've got now a go button, and I need to put them on the stage. So just making a variable doesn't mean they're going to show up anywhere. So I'm going to have first, the splash is going to show up. Now this is an interesting construction we have to do here, this code, because add child, we've done that before. The X and the Y, stage on stage width, stage divided by 2. Now this go to and stop just says, when you put that thing on the stage, you may recall that this object has multiple frames. We're going to say go to and stop 1, which holds the splash at frame 1. I'm going to collapse this side over here. Let's see. There we go. So hold the splash at frame 1. So this is just going to make the splash object show up and stay on frame 1. And when we put the button in place, you may need to adjust the math on this. So I've got in here some code that says add child go button, and this is the part here that may be an issue. So it's going on top of your splash screen, but where it goes may need to be altered mathematically to get it to show up properly. If your go button is really huge, which I don't recommend, then 3 times it may put it like above the screen somewhere. So consider where it's going to go. Make sure you put it in the middle is a smart idea, and put the rest of the pieces in there. Now also we have a scoreboard placement object in here. So I'm just going to drop in this. This includes a bit of commentary. So we've got our splash object, we've got our button, and we're also adding the scoreboard. Now the scoreboard is going to show up on top of all this stuff. But what I've done here, let's just explain out the code a little bit, is, let's just look at this. The score BG, let's just zoom up on this. The score BG, we know how to do a variable, which is an instance, that's easy. Add child, we know how to do that. Score BGX, stage on stage width, so we're putting it all the way on the right. And you may recall that piece has a registration point in the top right. So here's my score BG, and well, it's going to later. Anyways, consider where that should go. And right now I'm going to take this score BG visible. So width, how wide should it be? This is the scoreboard, right? So I divided by 5 instead of stage width. You divide it by 6 if you want to. Depends on how big you want it to be. And score BG dot height is stage height. So I used something I already had to make this with. Now there's one piece that we have here, score BG dot visible. I'm going to put a slash there. Now when I run this, I still can't see. Let's run it. Control Enter. There we go. So when I run this, I still can't see the scoreboard. I should be able to see the scoreboard. Now the button doesn't work yet because the function has not yet been engaged. So I don't have a function written to match that piece. But I don't see the scoreboard, and I wonder why that is. And if I don't know where it is, the first thing to check is where is the registration point. Now the earlier video I made showed us where it should be, and apparently I've got a couple of versions I'm working on. So if I take this, and I recall saying that I want the scoreboard to be on the right side of my screen. So wherever that is, you need to figure out where this should be based on that. So depending on where your scoreboard goes, you should be putting your registration point at a place that's going to match that need. So now that I've got this, when I control enter, there's my scoreboard. Now I don't actually want it right now. I want to see my splash screen, but I need to put it in place for later. So going back in here, back to my code, there it is. Okay, so here I have score BG.visible is false. When the game activates, we'll make the scoreboard visible. So just like this. So the rest of the code that makes this work is just a few lines of, let's see, I've got this here somewhere. Oh, we're also going to put the player in place. So let's add the player. Copy. So, and it says here add text stuff in a later version. So later on, we are going to add the text that makes the scoreboard work. The score is this and lives left is this. We'll do that later. So now we're adding in here this piece here. So add a player and hide it for game time. So we're already putting it in place. Var player, new player, and that of course is based on the library symbol called player. There it is. So player, and player is a nice generic thing to make it always like it'll fit any piece that you have. So you may as well stick to it there. Add child player, we put it on the stage. You position it. Now, let me just point this out. You may not need a complex thing to tell your player where to land horizontally, but as you may recall, the scoreboard, oh gosh, we can't see it now, but the scoreboard is on the right hand side. And so what that means is I said stage width minus score bg.width. What that winds up doing, let me just unhide my scoreboard. Here's what's happening. We have stage width as a whole screen, right? And then we say minus score bg.width. So we program the width of this, and so now what we're saying is the width is this distance here. So we're saying half of that. So let's look at that again and think that through. So stage width minus score bg.width. That is the first section of the screen until it hits the score bg, and then divide that by 2. So it's halfway down the middle. And player.y is stage height minus 2 times player height. So it's 2 heights up from the bottom of the screen. Stage height is up from the bottom of the screen. Then we say player.visible is false. Let's just go ahead and show this to see where it shows up. / is going to make that disabled. And now I run it, and there's my ship. So the ship is now halfway between the screen without counting in the scoreboard. So let's go ahead and hide both those objects now. And we're going to bring those into play in just a few minutes. So to build this into place, let's see, we're going to add some more code. So now we're going to put in some comment code. And the comments just get us to think through what we're trying to accomplish as we go. So let me scroll this down a little bit. Or let's see, I want to make it smaller. There we go. Make it legible. So let's. So the comment just says make the start button work to go through the splash screen to start the next level of splashes are done. Now you may recall that our splash screen has multiple frames. Let's just prove that to ourselves and look at score. What is the splash? Here we go, splash. So splash has a bunch of frames. Okay, one for each layer, etc., etc. So what we want to do with this is when the user clicks on the button, we want them to click through the screens to read everything they're supposed to read until they're ready to play. So if we copy this and put this in here, okay, here's the code. Go button. We're attaching the listener to the go button. Add event listener mouse event dot click means if you click on the go button, then it's going to beckon this next splash. Now, next splash, make sure you spell these the same way. One of the most common errors is they'll do it right here, but then they'll leave out a capital here. So the mistake that they'll get there is that doesn't work. So make sure that this one here matches this one here. Even copy and paste. So function next splash, oops, sorry about that. Function next splash is a result of mouse event. This and this match. That's the event type it was. Void, no output. And then here's what happened. Splash says next frame. Okay, so next frame says play the next frame, and it also says if splash.current frame is greater than 3, which means what do we have? We have a title screen, we have a story screen, and we have a direction screen. So that's 3, and if it gets past 3, then start the level. Now we don't have a start level yet, so I'm going to take this out for now. So just leave this / until we write that function, and control the enter. So here's this, click, 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 click. Now it clicks forever. Alright, but we need to make it hide once it gets too far. So let's see, start level. Let's write the function for start level. Now the start level function does not have a listener. It's summoned as a command from inside of another function. So we're going to say function, spell it right, start level, nothing inside the parentheses, but you do have to have the void afterwards. Alright, now we have this, and what start level is going to do, now we have a left and a right curly brace. Start level is going to advance the level, so we start at 0 level, and now we're at level 1 or 2 or whatever one we're at before. So every time you do this, start level, it's going to advance the level number. So let's just add that comment there. Advance a level. And the game starts at 0 level. Alright. Then we're going to say splash, visible, and we're going to say false. Now we're going to hide the splash. So the splash will always be there, and this is going to help us show which frame to be on layer. So now we're going to also say go button is going to hide also. So hide that also. So I'm putting comments here to remind me what it does. So now, here's what's going to happen. We run the button, 2, 3, and it should hide the thing. No, the reason it's not working, is because we didn't actually summon this start level thing. We have this still commented out. So knocking out those comments. Now, if we didn't have that there, if we just gone ahead and not commented that out without writing start level, we would have gotten an error. So, for example, if I say let's comment this out, here's block comment code. Now, when we call this, it says, hey, call to a possibly undefined method start level. Like you called for this thing doesn't exist. Okay, it's like being in a car and saying, oh, let me push the flying button. Well, there's no flying for a car. It just won't work. So let's take these comments out, and that will work again. And let's see, like this. So now again, it runs, and then it hides. So what we still need to also do with that function is we also need to make a couple things change as well. So we're going to say playing equals true, which I don't think we have yet. Actually, the playing, I can't remember if I have that function in place or that variable in place or not yet. Let's see, I think we did put that in the vars. Yep, there's playing. So playing is going to be true, which at this point doesn't really matter, but when we start doing things like moving the player and shooting and creating enemies, it's going to have to be playing true to make that work. And dying and other things, ending a level, would cause playing to be false. So now we're also going to say score BG is going to equal true, and player visible is going to equal true. Now, I left out the dot visible here. So dot true. Nope, dot visible. Yes. Alright. Now I left out a semicolon here. So now, play, boom. And that's what we have for our infrastructure. Now what's not here yet is what happens when we play and what happens when you end the level. But we've got it built up to work through those different frames to make it work. That's it for this version, and make sure you save your work and back it up to Google Drive every time. Later.